Hello and welcome to Console Tours, taking you to the real-life locations behind your favorite games.
Anyway, that's Asahikawa and Eterna and the area around it. Where are we going to now?
We are headed to Celestic.
Yes.
Which I think you're going to find interesting.
Yes.
Partly because while it is not Ainu culture, I think it is one of the very obviously inspired by.
Yes. Just from the little bit I can see, yes. It is. Oh, Heka. Yeah. Like, that's a shrine. Oh, yeah. This is Ainu.
These are the two generation legendaries. This is a tiny little cave.
Oh, yeah. This is absolutely Ainu culture. And to anyone watching this video, like, if you ever go to Hokkaido, go to the Ainu spots and the Ainu locations and the Ainu compounds and landmarks, because the Ainu is not really generally brought up outside of Hokkaido. There's not a big awareness of Ainu culture, and it's so wonderful, and there's so much of it out there. Like, if you go to Hokkaido, experience it. You would be missing out if you didn't. Also, I know nothing about the plot of this game, so I have no idea what's happening right now.
Apparently this is a flag that I either forgot to set or never really did. But this is basically, a big lore dump about the two box legendaries in Giratina.
Yeah, they seem to be connecting the legendaries to the areas that are most specifically Ainu related, because the three lakes and the Send-Off Spring are all based on sacred lakes, which were sacred to the Ainu. Yeah,
which is where the three generational mythics come about.
But yeah, the construction of the houses in this town is very, very Ainu.
Oh, yeah, let's go inside, because they look different than... Oh, wait, not that one. This one, though.
Oh, that's a meeting house.
Yeah.
That would be like a meeting house. Yeah. I think that's an amazing little touch that they put in, The only thing I wish is that we could have got a Koro-pok-guru Pokemon.
That would have been interesting.
The little men?
Yeah.
Have I talked about those yet?
I don't think you've talked about it on this stream, no. Yeah,
so Koro-pok-guru are one of, like, the most common Ainu... They're not quite yokai, because they're totally benevolent, just kind of trickstery, but one of the most popular Ainu creatures, and Koro-pok-guru means little man who lives inside the stalk of the butterbur plant. And the butterbur are these big, tall plants with hollow stems, or hollow stalks that you cut and you eat, and they taste really good pickled, and they taste really good in soup, because they kind of are fairly flavorless, and they absorb the broth. They look a lot like celery, but I don't think they taste at all like celery.
I think they're technically related to celery.
It wouldn't surprise me. They're very, very physically similar.
Oh yeah, the defog area.
But anyway, so there's these butterbur plants that are like a really common food staple among the Ainu and among the people of Hokkaido, and there was a myth that there were these tiny, like, half-inch, 1-inch tall people who lived inside the stalks of the butterbur and underneath their big fan-like leaves, and they had this culture, they had little houses and little furniture inside the butterbur, and they were little tricksters who might, steal your machete if you laid it down, or steal your gloves if you took them off while you were harvesting. And I was out harvesting butterbur with one of my neighbors, this older woman, because we during the spring we'd cut down a lot of it in early spring, and then we'd pickle it for the rest of the year. And she said, "Do you know what I think about the Koro-pok-guru?" And I said, "What do you think about them?" And she said, "I think that the Ainu just made them up to get their children to do chores." And she said, when she was younger, she would tell her own children about the Koro-pok-guru, because when they were going out and they were cutting down the butterbur and gathering the butterbur, it would motivate her kids not to slack off. They'd, be cutting through them very quickly, because they'd be like, oh, maybe we can find a little man, maybe we'll see one if we're very quick and we're very thorough. So I believe that they were made up by Ainu mothers to get Ainu children to do their chores, in which case, good on you, Ainu mothers. You rock.
I would 100% believe it. There is also one famous fictional Koro-pok-guru.
Isun from Okami.
Yes.
Yes, and we are going to talk about... We'll do an Okami episode of Console Tours because that game goes so much into Ainu mythology and it's beautiful. But anyway, yes, so the architecture of this village is clearly Ainu. You can see the wider roofs, you can see the banded wooden designs. It reminds me of the Ainu compounds, which I visited at Akan and Shiraoi. So specifically, it reminds me a lot of the compound of Shiraoi, which is now part of it is still an active village where people live. It's also a learning center where people can come and watch demonstrations about Ainu life, like music, dancing, weaving, cooking, and that was somewhere that I spent quite a lot of time. I really loved visiting there, and I would be always game for trying, whatever food was on the menu. I sometimes didn't even ask what was in the meat, and, it would be deer, it would be bear, it would be all sorts of things, it would be fish heads, fish eyes, and I did it! I ate everything that they put in front of me, so I'm proud of myself in that regard. I tried every Ainu dish. They made these amazing acorn dumplings, like they used acorn flour primarily over rice flour. Highly recommend their acorn dumplings. Really delicious.
Do they, when they make the flour, do they grind up the whole thing, or just including the little hat?
Oh, no, not the hat.
Okay.
Sorry. No, you don't eat the hat of the acorn. But yeah, that village is very Ainu, and it's really cool that the Ainu do get a shout out here, where so much work that covers Hokkaido or refers to Hokkaido kind of ignores them. I mean, I don't know if you know the history of the Ainu, but they kind of got a raw deal. Japan, it was very similar to the plight of the Native Americans or the First Nations. Japan came in and said, "Our land now," and the Ainu said, "No," and Japan said, "Yes, our land now." And one big thing that a lot of the teachers I worked with over there said was that, in quote-unquote mainland Japan, so outside of Hokkaido, Ainu history and Ainu culture weren't really taught in schools. I mean, my kids, they didn't learn the Ainu language, which has their own language completely separate from Japanese, and you can hear it in how a lot of the place names sound different. I mean, Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, Sapporo. You hear the hard sounds, the ps and the ks. They didn't learn the Ainu language, but they did have units on Ainu in their social studies classes and activities specifically related to Ainu culture. They would learn like Ainu music and dance and stuff. But they said that outside of Hokkaido, that's not really done. Cool. So I wish that awareness of the Ainu was higher in games, in media, in pop culture, in modern culture, and in school and education. I mean, there are so few pieces of media that acknowledge the Ainu. The biggest one is actually a manga called Golden Kamuy, which recently got an anime adaptation, which is about searching for mysterious lost Ainu gold, which kind of gives you an idea of how the modern Japanese perception towards the Ainu would be. If, Anyway, that's my thoughts about this area. It's very, very Ainu in nature.
Okay, after I complete this little ninja boy fight, where do you want to go next? Do you want to go to the trio of towns where you live?
Yes.
Alright.
Also, weird question. Does anyone in Celestic do any curling?
Not as far as I know. I mean, there might be somebody who talks about it, but...
Yeah, I just asked because although visually it draws most of its inspiration from the Ainu towns and villages of Hokkaido, geographically it shares a location with a town called Kitami, which is most famous for curling. It's got a fairly infamous curling team, and that's kind of the first thing I think of when I'm thinking of Kitami is, winter sports. So, does Celestic have a gym, or...?
No, Celestic does not. The only notable thing about it is that little cave, and that it is the hometown of the Generations champion.
Huh, okay.
Okay, so do we want to go to Hearthome, Silesian, or Pastoria?
I mean, all of them at once, so you can pick what order.
Alright, we'll go here, then Hearthhome, and then fly down to Pastoria.
So, I have a lot to talk about now. One thing I just want to say is we'll be making more videos about this, but hey, if you have any questions about living in Hokkaido, about the connections between Sinnoh and Hokkaido, about how the heck did you end up in Hokkaido in the first place, like, hey, reach out to me. I'm on Twitter at derletztentans. I'm on GameLuster under my name, Kate Mitchell, so just, heck, reach out to me, because I love talking about Hokkaido and everything to do with it. Obviously, it's a place that I'm passionate about, that I've shared so much of my life with, so, yeah, talk to me about Hokkaido.
And if you have any suggestions for future episodes after we finish up looking at Sinnoh and the other Hokkaido-related areas, let us know, and we can see if we can get some console tours going.